Hey guys, I'm wrthcrw, a professional Apex Legends coach who's worked with over 500 students across all skill tiers, both casual and professional. In today's video, I cover 3 different Anchor players' VODs to help you understand the fundamentals of playing Anchor in competitive Apex Legends. While each of these students were each playing Wattson, this video will serve as a very strong introductory in helping any player refine their skills as an Anchor player, whether you're new to the role or have tons of experience. These VODs were from the free coaching I offer in my Discord, so if you are interested in participating, be sure to join my Discord and read the rules so you can participate and improve. If you guys enjoy the coaching content, be sure to subscribe and like the video, and if you want your own coaching session, be sure to check out the description below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Been filling in for the gluers in Vesa, but having to learn how to be aggro in new meta and learning how to play scrims in general is rough because I never had to. VOD is from the other night, in scrims. Can't remember if I recorded it all. I feel like I crumble under stress so bad. I'm so used to being Anchor Waddy. When I follow my leader, I'm just lost. Things looking to fix are be more aggro, communicate more, don't crumble. Anything you find, to be honest. Some strategy told me to go ahead even though I don't see the issue in my scanning. But learn to play scrims better. I've run 4K hours in Apex across all devices and apps. Going over Anchor Scrim VOD, we have a lot of scrims to go over. We straight up just have 4 scrim VODs to go over. I like the ability to get a bunch of scrim content. So let's go ahead and do that. I find it very funny that all of the scrim VODs I review are like anchors. Alright, so let's talk about a couple things already. So let's start talking about the difference between scrims versus ranked. And when I say scrims, let's actually talk about the clarification between what scrims are. Scrims are the competitive mode of this game. It is the outside of the game, custom games, where you have 20 teams trying their best to all win the game. This is not synchronous with ranked, where ranked you have ranked points. You go up in points by killing people, getting placement, blah, 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 blah. Scrims and competitive follow the ALGS format, where like first place is 12 points, second place is 8 or 9 points. I forget exactly what it is, but and then each kill is 1 point. This also creates a very big difference because the teams in scrims are expected to follow in a certain skill range. The skill range is typically tighter than ranked because in a scrim, generally, everybody's goals are put on the same page. They want to win. They want to get as many points as possible, right? So typically, it can not be enough to get first place with 5 kills. Because if you remember what I said earlier, this is 12 plus 5, this would be 17 points. But sometimes we need more points over generally just winning. When it comes to something like, ALGS or like match point and stuff like that, this kind of changes a little bit. But for the majority of people that are playing, this is kind of what it ends up being. This goal is different than ranked, where ranked is make number go up. I love making number go up, right? There's a lot of ways to make number go up. Obviously, winning is the best way to do that. But also, depending on the rank system, depending on the current meta, kills are weighted more, right? Getting a ton of kills is what's asked of you, or getting a good placement is what's asked of you. Sometimes it's unfair, sometimes it's not. I'm not here to argue what is or isn't good for the game. I'm just telling you how it is, right? And so with scrims, everybody has the same goal. Unlike ranked, where the goal is a lot of different things, right? Scrims are a concentrated environment to practice. And so, if I'm going to ask you how you win the game, there's typically 2 main playstyles, right? There's edge, which is typically, playing the edge of the zone, playing on the outskirts of the zone, and then walking in like this. And then there's actual zone, right? Where you go in zone and you're in the center of zone, or you're in a good place for zone where you think zone's gonna pull, right? The zone pulls like over here, you're already here early, right? There's a lot of micro stuff to learn and figure out for all of this, but generally these 2 playstyles are it's very important to determine what your team is doing and how you're doing it. They will typically pick certain characters and comps to be able to do these. Characters that are flexible are typically preferred. So if there's a character that can do edge and zone, a really good example of this would be something like Catalyst or Bangalore, right? Or these 2 characters can provide both of these utilities in certain ways. However, specific value can override general value. But when crafting your comp and what you're trying to do, it matters a lot for the type of playstyle you're going to do. There's a lot of learning, there's a lot of knowledge to kind of learn and apply and all that stuff. I'm not going to go over all of it, but where you go is so much more crucial than it is in something like ranked, because in ranked, not everybody's following the same ideal. Like, you could play edge, and it's not going to be very realistic to how it would apply in something like scrims. Because we all have the same goal, the environment's generally more competitive. We get a lot more standardized gameplay. But macro is the idea of where you're going. It's kind of like where your team is positioned on the map. It's where you guys are going to walk to. It involves your looting. It involves your pathing. It involves like everything about your team in context to the greater map. Micro is stuff like how you're fighting in the middle of a fight, your individual movements around, like, you know, geometry, strafing, aiming, all that stuff, right? So macro is all of the stuff we set ourselves up for in the fight, right? Macro has a way bigger focus in scrims than it does in ranked. And so it's important to understand our first thing that we're trying to do is establish good macro. This is where a lot of players struggle. And we need to understand that the goal, like I said, is to get first place. However, whatever playstyle we're aligning ourselves to, whether it be edge or zone, we have to figure out what we're doing in coordination with that. Another thing versus scrims versus ranked is that scrims accentuate roles way more importantly. Roles are very, 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 very important in scrims. Now, generally, what the community knows as the 3 roles is something like entry, we have refrag, and we have anchor, right? Each of these roles has different characters that fit toward them. They have different jobs. There's a lot of important stuff to understand as each role. We're not going to talk about the accentuation of these 2 roles here. We're mostly going to talk about anchor. We can get into this in a later date, but for right now, we're focusing on anchor because 1, we have like 3 VODs to go over that go over anchor, and 2, you know, this is the crux of what we're going to talk about today. It's important for this student. Let's talk about anchor's job specifically in a scrim setting. Right? Okay, so chat, what is the job of an anchor? What does the anchor do in relation on a team? The first thing I want to say here is 1, information. Anchors are responsible for getting information a lot of the time. Because they have an outward angle, on a lot of situations, they can provide the most information. So let's go ahead and talk about positioning real quick. It's important to recognize that the term anchor comes from the idea that they are holding a spot, right? However, this can be kind of dubious because a lot of anchor players think they don't need to be involved, when that is not true at all. The name anchor comes from the idea that you're holding a position down while your 2 other teammates, your frag and your refrag, both walk up and try to sneak an opportunity, but you are going to continue holding the spot in zone or holding the safe spot for your team to play in. However, this does not mean that you sit back and let your teammates do all the work. It does not mean that you just get pot shots off, that you shoot, just kind of letting your teammates do the rest of the work. You are still responsible for walking up and helping. If anchor is not the role in a fight, it is better described as anchor when holding a building and initiator or support. So what the fuck does that mean? Fighting in Apex is mostly composite of space control. You have to make sure that when you are playing, that you're fighting for space. Not fighting for space properly and not understanding that space is kind of the main point of what we're trying to do results in students not really having a good understanding of how to fight. So let us consider here that we have 3 players on a team, right? The typical team positioning is going to be this triangle, right? We have anchor in the back, frag in the front, and then refrag on the other side, right? The term initiator is going to help you a lot understand that your job in a fight can typically range from starting it or creating the initial push to support being help other people with their initial push, right? The main downside of this is that if you play like this, you're playing a 2v3 against another team that's 3 stacked up like this, right? If a team is 3 stacked up like this, they can hold one angle all together, they can fight something all together. The problem is that they don't elicit very good space control. So if you have a team of 3 in a building like this, for example, right? Have you guys ever tried to swing with your teammate and you get them nasty back shots? You swing the door, your teammate swings it first, you swing as well, you're just shooting back shot. You're getting a good team building exercise and just giving your teammate back shots. And then you waste your whole mag, your teammate unswings, your teammate took all the damage, you're wasting all of your ammo, stuff like that, right? That's because typically what's happening is either people don't understand the micro of playing with somebody, either you are not swinging wide enough, or your teammate isn't swinging wide enough to allow you to support them. Or you guys are all stacked up together. Just think about it. This is one of the concepts that ties back to thresholds. When we have a building here, right, we have this choke point here, right? This choke point is naturally a funnel for how players can get in and out of the building. If you know anything about thresholds, you know that they restrict strafe space, right? So this inherently tells you that the angles created from this are going to be a lot tighter and it's going to influence how much damage we take, right? If I peek this, and my teammate peeks this, where the fuck does the other teammate peek from, right? Our teammate, there's no way our teammate's gonna go, all right, shooting in the middle of you guys here. There's no way this teammate is gonna swing after we're done swinging. We're not tag teaming in. This is not a WWE superstar match. I'm coming in with the chair, slamming this team in the building. Like, that's not gonna happen. So typically, what we're trying to do in a lot of these situations is we typically go for a 2-1 split. What this means is that we have 2 people on one door, 1 person on the other door. If we naturally ask ourselves who the 2 is and who the 1 is, right? The 2 is going to be your support and your refrag, typically, right? 1 is typically going to be your frag. Refrag and frag can interchange here, but the reason why we have our frag or our refrag here is because generally, these characters have some form of interpersonal mobility that helps them swing, or helps them fight, or gives them the advantage, right? Let's just take the most traditional one as of late that everybody should understand to an extent. Bangalore is one of the best fraggers. I mean, Bangalore can do everything, right? Bangalore can smoke, double time, it helps with the swings, it helps with the push-ups, it helps with, like, everything, right? Bangalore, very, very good legend. You'll typically leave the Bangalore to 1, and you'll leave the other 2 characters to 2, right? However, sometimes you don't always have technical control over a situation. Sometimes it's going to be the 2 and it's going to be a Bangalore and somebody else, right? It's important to not look at these as hard rules for understanding how to play scrims or ranked. And it's more important to help you understand the kind of flow of how these fights work. If you always stick to these as hard rules, you're going to limit yourself as a player fundamentally. There's a lot of exceptions and there's a lot of situation. Every rule is made to have exceptions that break the rule in general, right? For example, if we're playing a building and your teammate goes, swing this with me, and you go, no, I'm supposed to swing with my Bangalore player. Sorry, pal, I can't help you. Like, you're an awful teammate. Why would you do that, right? And it's important to understand that the flexibility of anchor, refrag, and frag, these rules are interchangeable to an extent. Sometimes for example, Catalyst is a legend who both goes from anchor to refrag, or anchor to frag, depending on the building and the situation that you're in and the cooldowns and stuff like that, right? A character with no cooldowns really isn't that great as a frag character, just because they can't really do anything, right? Horizon can be a really good entry character, but in certain situations, he's a way stronger refrag character, right? And so this interchangeability is really important to understand. There's never hard rules for a character should do this, a character should do that, a character can only do this, a character can only do that. For example, Watson can totally be your entry. Good Watsons know how to siege, because Watson does struggle to siege, but can still do so in many situations, right? For example, if you're in a building that has a door here and a door here, what you can do is you can place a fence node right here, place another fence node right here, and you cut the room in half. You break the doors, you stun people that are sitting on the doors, and now you've basically given yourself the ability to enter the room if they were just sitting on the doors or had the doors cat reinforced or something. This is a specific example that's in Barometer on Stormpoint. Those buildings that have 2 floors and the top floor has like the window back here that you can kind of shoot through, right? Watson can do this in a lot of building situations. However, Watson can't always do this, you know? You can't be in an open field and be like, hang on guys, I'm gonna go run around the enemy and place 1 node behind them and then 1 on the other side, right? You can't really do that. But it's dependent on every situation about what you can do. Yeah, buildings and survey. You have to understand the framework and use your character-specific knowledge and your character-specific understanding to override these, and you know that's where true mastery comes from. I think anybody can fill any role pretty easily, but the flexibility and true understanding comes from how things are malleable over time. The second thing that anchors or initiators or supports are supposed to do is that they amplify resets. Okay, so resetting, if you guys know from my fighting flowchart, there are 4 steps to resetting, right? The first one is armor swap, but, you know, what are they going to do for armor swapping, right? So armor swap, gun. There are characters that can do this, like Ballistic. There's not a lot of good examples of it. A Ballistic can act as a support and can help amplify the gun reset phase. If the players just have good fundamentals and know how to reset and know to, you know, reload their guns and all that stuff, it's not really that big of a help. It can be in certain situations, but, like, that's, you know, that's up to you guys to brew, not for me to, you know, tell you how to do. there's positioning, and then there's heal. Every anchor character is going to help with one or more of these steps in the actual anchor initiator support dictonomy, right? Let's take every single support character. Most of them fall into these two, right? So some characters like Watson can do both, right? Watson both helps positioning, both helps healing, the gen, the fences. Characters like Catalyst don't only support the healing, but give extreme positioning advantage, right? The cat wall, the cat goo, the cat doors, right? All of that stuff helps amplify people's reset. Certain characters like Conduit, well, Conduit ult does technically do positioning, but let's kind of discount that because it's not super great compared to other characters, right? It's like subpar positioning for super par healing, right? Much better healing supplementary. Lifeline offers really good healing supplementary, and really good, if we add a little asterisk to this, Lifeline also has rezzing as well, right? But offers 0 positioning value. A character like Vantage, for example, Vantage is one of the characters that offers gun advantage, because Vantage helps with damage. Vantage not only provides a huge damage outtick with the initial sniper, but it also gives a damage modifier to your teammates, so it helps them with the actual gun. A character like Ashe, for example, Ashe can also do it because Ashe also helps kind of with the positioning. She stops enemies from pushing with the tether. She provides an area that can be dangerous, right? Okay, look, are there any other examples of supports that break this mold that you guys can think of? If there is, I'll go over them on a case-by-case scenario. But every character that's typically good in the game can typically do something like this to help. Gibby, I mean, positioning the bubble is a really dangerous thing. It's a really safe spot to heal. Gibby has some gun stuff, but yeah. Crypto, I think Crypto would fall into gun and also kind of follows into positioning, because part of positioning is helping you understand the information you have, right? When we take a good position, we always use it to get more info, which is kind of a subdirectory of positioning. We always take good positioning so we can get more information. Seer, when he was the most broken. Seer was weird because Seer wasn't really an anchor. He supplemented the gun. He interrupted the enemy's heal, right? Because there's both supporting your own and denying the enemies, right? If we're both in a race, right? Let's say we're both racing cars, right? We have our little vehicles here. We're going vroom vroom. I can either just speed up, or if I can just put spike strips on the road or a wall in front of you when you're racing, it's a really good analogy to something like what Seer did. You can interrupt the opponent's speed in the race to give you a natural advantage. There's a lot of ways to interact with this. It's not just as simple as it helps you. It can also stop the opponent from resetting as well. And you'll notice that characters that stop a reset are really good at snowballing. Like Seer was really good at snowballing because you get one crack, he would cancel your heal, reveal your position, silence you, and that would just completely negate 2 out of 3 points, right? You couldn't hold a good position because you were silenced, and also they had wall hacks on you. Hand flash bombed. Dude, this shit was so stupid, man. There's 4 teams. The third way is that when we specifically look at the initiator part of this, they typically set up some form of advantage for your team, right? Advantage. We can also kind of reduce this to game state manipulation. Yeah, let's call it that. So what this means is that anchor characters can typically cause something in a fight to go in your team's favor through one or more abilities. This seems pretty obvious, and it's like, well, can't every character do that? And it's not necessarily. Typically, characters don't have all 3. I mean, it's your job to have info, and it's your job to amplify resets. But this is kind of like one of the changes in dynamics between controlling a fight. When we have stuff like, oh, I have an advantage because I have good positioning. I have an advantage because we have a numbers advantage. I have an advantage because we have abilities and grenades and stuff like that, right? This is more so what I mean when I talk about, like, for example, Catwall. Catwall is a really good game state manipulation because it modifies terrain. It puts up a wall that slows and stuns and prevents LOS and everything like that, right? It usually does damage, or more important than raw damage, it usually disables opponents to some extent. Watson Fence just completely locks you out of playing the game for, like a second or 2. Conduit ult stuns you, slows you, stuff like that, right? It's not very consistent, but it is just what happens, right? And this game state manipulation typically leads to them playing a flex role. So like refrag to anchor, but sometimes these characters don't have enough to follow up themselves, which typically makes them weaker, but not necessarily always. So for example, Vantage is a character that struggles a lot to capitalize on her own. It's just that Vantage, she can if people don't respect her enough or you catch somebody off guard. Something that affects the variables of how a fight is controlled either to where you can't capitalize on it or where your team can capitalize on it, if that makes sense. They typically do these 3 rules. They typically do one of these 3 things, but you should try and aim to do all 3. Characters don't need abilities to help with game state manipulation. Anchors are usually responsible for swinging it wildly in your favor, right? If your anchor doesn't need to do anything for game state manipulation, typically the other 2 players are already doing it, or your team's doing it very well, or the enemy team is doing it very poorly, right? For example, if you're anchoring and your 2 teammates are running up and like trying to capitalize on something, you really don't need help with that very often, because you can straight up just look at something else, and then they'll kill the enemy team because they're in a bad position, or third partying, or something or another, right? Now that we know everything that an anchor, initiator, support is going to do, let's give better definition to what information is important. So not all information is important. The information that is important is information that's going to make you win the game, or information that's going to make you lose the game. Some examples of this information: winning the game is going to be something like ring or loot. For example, like hammer points, like a purple bolt, a magazine. In some situations, a scope, but not really anything else, right? Chat, have you guys ever lost a game because you didn't have a blue stock, and that was the only reason? I will PayPal you $50. There's so many things you could have done before that a blue stock did not make you lose the game, right? When we talk about core loot, we talk about loot that affects our lethality and our uptime. So, like I said, scopes, mags, guns, some attachments, stuff like that. Lose conditions is things like third parties. Third parties, we also generalize this to knowing the game plan, for example. A really good comm is something like, how do we lose this fight? How do we lose the game in this situation? Oh, well, we lose because if somebody dies here, we can't reset, right? We're not playing a comp that allows us to reset here. So don't die, play really safe, make sure you don't overextend and overchow something so you can stay alive, right? With all of this in mind, right? All of this to go over and talk about how Moose here does not loot very well. When Moose is walking around here and looting, I want you to notice that, especially in a scrim environment, Moose pings way too much loot. You should have a general idea of what guns are really good. You can rely on memory in a lot of situations to just be like, oh, if you need this gun is really good here. But you should have a general idea of what guns are good. If you don't have a general idea of what guns are good, you need to do some research, watch some streams, something like that, right?
Why not? Okay, we'll drop that.
I wouldn't do it.
Give me a second PK.
The only person that can really run a shotgun is Gogu. Gogu and myself.
I had 2 of
And
those.
if you're running a shotgun on Watson, you're running like Eva or the Watson.
Like, just pinging everything in the game, instead of just being like, there's a scope here, and pinging the scope. That's way too much information. It drowns out all the other information. You have to make sure that the information you do say is crux to the game in general. And, like, if you say everything that's always happening ever, and then someone's like, wait, there's a third party, and you go, yeah, I said that. I said that right before lines 47 and lines 49. Right before I pinged a blue stock and a rampage on the ground, right? Like, I understand the urge to give all the information possible, but it's not conductive. There's also a lack of getting info on the map screen here. You scan. Sure, it is your IGL's job to make sure that you guys know where you go. But it's also your job to make sure that they are looking at the information. Calm that you're looking at the beacon. Open your map and just say something like, oh, it's a monument zone. Or, oh, it's a this zone. Or it pulls north. Or something like that, right? Just making sure that all the information is being put out there. Nothing's being really ignored. It's really small stuff, but it's very important for an anchor to do. Give the important information as much as you can. Don't talk over people unless it's information that will make you straight up lose or win the game. I'm not really going to review your macro in this game. Mostly it's going to review your decision making.
I'll take the R3 one. You can take my.
This not your job. Your job, always your job, is to take the strongest position that's available to you for free and start holding it. It's really important that your job as an anchor, you aren't going to be the person that's stretching out, right? When we look at this 2-1 split here, where the anchor sits in the back and everybody else plays out here, think of it like a claw, and you're the base of the hand, right? These people are playing outward, and you're always going to be the root. I think someone in chat described it earlier. You're the tether for everybody to play around here. It's not your job to be out here looting and stuff like this. It's your job to always be continually getting info. What info are you getting right here? Nothing. There's 2 people opening the bin. It's extremely inefficient. If you want to open the bin, then Billy watches for you. You need to actually be in a good position and watch and hold. Look around. Look. 360. Full periphery. Look. Okay, let's look at the zone here. Zone, closing this way. Everybody has to come in from this side. So where should you look? to where the zone is closing. Because somebody, if someone's here, was trying to walk up, oh look, there's a team there, so they're running this way now. And guess where they're running? Straight into you. If they run into you face first, well, you're fighting now. Then you're probably going to get third party by a team coming from over here. One of these teams are going to rightfully want to third party you, because if they kill you, they clear edge. You're very, 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 very tunneled right now. You have to make sure, especially when the round's closing, this is the most important time to get information. You're very tunneled at a very core point in the game. You might not get punished for it here, but there are going to be situations where you are playing on edge where this is going to happen. You have to make sure that you watch for this, like especially even like ranked. You can look for poke damage here, not right now. Any other point in the game is very important to look for and do. The time where you want to do this is where if your plan is identified and you need to wait for something and there's no changes in the game state. So the zone's not closing, you guys aren't trying to loot. You guys aren't trying to do anything because you guys are just chilling. You guys have a spot. There's no changes to game state and stuff like that. This is when you start looking for poke damage like this. Set advantage. Now this is actually a good gen.
Yeah, I know.
But I need to see more than 4 fences. More spiderweb. Spiderweb your shit. Act like you're Spider-Man. I'm so annoyed that these guys just got to walk in the building for free here. There's no situation here where they should be able to do this for free. Your fencing is really, really, really bad. You need to interlink your fences like a spider web. There's no situation in where 2 people should be able to walk in here for free like that.
You got this, kid.
Turn around, Moose, turn around. Nice, rest quick, rest.
Fighting wise, you did well there. You did your job. You did fine there. The tension was not on you, so you capitalized on it very well.
No team.
Unlucky.
You did not fundamentally hold space as an anchor well in this fight at all. Anything like that. That should be more than enough to help you build your anchor skills. We'll go on to the next VOD. Working on my mechs for a decent time now. I'd like to know if I can focus on them to take the next level. With the R5 focus practicing Kovaak's generally looking to see what the next for my mechanics would be. Next for mechanics, any mistakes in decision making, any flaws I have played around my team, any common what I should do to improve. Besides R5 and Kovaak's. Okay, well we're looking at mostly mechanical stuff, so I'm gonna watch a lot of some other things in this. We're actually gonna watch how you play in a fight and stuff like that. Hi Fishy. Fishy, you're gonna love me, Fishy. I have so much for you to edit. I love the rampage. This is why I love the rampage, by the way. Oh my god, it was gorgeous.
I get close to the ramp, I'm gonna stand.
It's a batting.
Nice.
I'm batting, it's all you guys.
Biggest one, actually one. I'm betting. Nice.
Oh, I love the rampage. Oh.
I'm out there, dude. Regain shot on the back. Nice.
Core thing here. Really good way to get yourself timing. I said this before in the last VOD. If you can take traditional damage, do not use non-traditional methods. You have to make sure that you are in a position to not take damage when not having your gun out. You have to be able to shoot your gun if you're gonna get shot. You have to at least be very aware of it. There was a lot of damage here that you didn't need to take. You could have thrown these nades from behind this rock. One of the really important things for anchors is to understand uptime. Making sure that you have really good uptime and make sure they're always able to participate in the fight is really, 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 really important. If you don't have good uptime, you're not going to be a good anchor because you can't contribute to fights on like a large scale. You have a really good angle here. Not being able to shoot your gun for several seconds could, be very dangerous for your team. Fortunately, this team just died on the zip across, so it didn't really matter, but still. Watching anchor gameplay is very interesting because you just have to literally sit here and look at what they're looking at. This is a really good example of being a lot more proactive with the way you're looking for people that needed it last VOD, where Mep's actually looking at everything and getting an idea of where everything is in relativity to each other.
I'm walking back to the side. Yeah, there's a full team on the other side of the bridge.
Okay. I spoke to the bridge. I don't have angle right now. This is really bad.
A lot of the way you're interweaving yourself here specifically needs to be from cover to cover and never really in the open. Pathing, generally, when you're walking around without any idea where people are, when you're focusing or when you're pathing specifically in an area where you don't know if people are there, because you haven't watched that at all, right? You have no idea where people are, you don't really have a solid idea. You need to make sure your pathing looks something like this, where you're walking in between things like this. You can't really be walking in a straight line, because if you think about the downtime of where you're peaking and where you end up being at, sure, pink takes more time, but it's safer, right? If you ever don't really know where you're going or what you're doing, you need to make sure you take the extra time to be safer. Time is the complete opposite of risk. So you need to take more time with your pathing and stuff like this if you're going to walk back like that. A lot of what I notice is that it's mostly just bad damage. If we get caught here, for example, let's say we get caught, let's say we're taking orange. We're gonna mark the areas in orange where we are in very great danger with this pink, right? As soon as we cross this threshold here, up until we get to about here, we are in great danger for about this point. Because we are so far away from cover that we actually can't get back to cover very quickly. We can slide jump over here, but it's very easy for somebody, especially because we're walking a straight line, it's very easy for someone to do a good conglomerate and chunk of damage. However, if we mark the areas in blue here that we're in danger with the pink line, we're in danger from here to about here instead. We're intentionally curving the way we move to break LOS with this box should we need to. I'm not saying you have to literally walk into and behind the box. Like, I would say something like green here. This is way too slow. It's just all about efficiency. You need speed, efficiency, and the least amount of risk. The times where you walk up with orange are if you know where everybody is, your syncing abilities down, you know you can't get shot, right? The opposite of risk is time and information. Green would be way too conservative. Orange is way too liberal. You want to make sure that you are using the pink line here, making sure that you have a good idea where you're anchoring from cover and where you can go to. Because bad damage on anchor is like 100 times worse than bad damage on somebody else. Because you can't support your teammates. Bad damage on your anchor means that your team fundamentally has no support and lacks the ability to fight for a lot of positioning. But bad damage on your entry fragger, for example, your entry fragger should be making mistakes. Your entry fragger should be taking a lot of damage to try and create opportunities. And so when the entry fragger, runs back to cover, the anchor can support them. It's really easy for fights to completely plummet and go downhill because the anchor takes bad damage, the entry peeks something, takes a lot of damage, deals a lot of damage, and then now there's two people here. It's very easy for a smoke to come down here. You can't contribute to the fight at all. You die.
Oh, that guy's shooting. That guy's shooting. And we're batting. That guy's actually shooting. I'm simply that's but he has to be shooting. I was crosswalking third time.
Dude, these are really good example of spiderweb fencing.
From the far side. After we
Nice. That's a really good example of Watson entry, by the way. And prioritizing your life here, so good. Very, very good here.
I come see you.
So here specifically,
I'm gonna peek from the door.
Yeah, go.
once you realize it's clear here, your goal should be to reset your health and look for information at the same time. You can do both. You don't have to necessarily dedicate to just healing, or just looking for information, or just shooting. And then medkit right here. Medkit while looking out the door here. You don't need to shoot anything, you just need to heal. Being down 40 HP is pretty dangerous. And now, you don't have time to heal. You're definitely gonna pop a syringe here.
Nice. Defense. Bro. Everyone is only shooting at us, I can't move anywhere.
Yeah, that's not great. So right here is a really good example of a situation where grenades would have benefited a lot on the walk up here. I know you just finished your ult excel here, but because your teammate's so far ahead of you, one grenade from you would help so much here if you had one and didn't necessarily use them earlier. I don't know if anybody had a grenade here. It was kind of miserable to watch. Getting stuck low climber is like actual fucking torture. I hate getting stuck low climber. Get beacon here. Fly around at the speed of sound. Wait, does the team on top of fucking... Wait, do you get inted by those guys? Is that what happens? Is that why you're saying, what the fuck are they doing? Is that what happens here?
Yeah.
Yes? That's insane! Why are you top fucking trials? What the... Dude! Brain rot. Actual brain rot. Why the fuck are you guys... Dude.
It's on me.
Up there.
What's his one?
What's on us?
Bang, one.
Dude, what? Wait, that wasn't even the Pathfinder team. That was just another team. Okay, hang on. Let me review the pre-fight stuff. Okay, you guys got...
It's on me.
Up there.
Okay, what the fuck is this priority here? You land building. The first thing you do as any anchor player in any character that helps reinforce space, you always reinforce the bottom floor and or the top floor, depending on what building you're playing. Sometimes there's balconies and stuff you need to reinforce, but they're a lot less likely to be landed on. The fact that the team gets in your bottom after landing here for free is like kind of so absurd that the fight takes that long to do. I mean, the team top trials would have fucked them so bad if you actually had fences on the bottom floor. Like, this is a situation where you don't spider fence. You put your fences down, go third, gen, pop an attack, come back down, and then start spider, like, fencing your shit, and then go top, and then get the fences on top down. Alright, chat. It's zone gameplay, so you guys know what that means, right? Alright. I gotta keep the audience retention up, dude. Dude, it's just me or this guys suck at Subway Surfers.
Fine, honestly.
Yeah.
Yep, on my door.
I'm coming. I'm not there yet. I'm coming.
Slide one.
See, that's a good nade.
I hit him.
You got stairs here? Yeah, this is good.
I got.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Almost got another one.
Yep.
I like this call to ape. I actually really like this call to ape here.
I'm going
Walk upstairs.
Okay, hang on. We need to actually watch this VOD now, guys.
No, he didn't. I'll get there.
In front of me. One. Don't find that.
So this is a really good example of what I mean by the 2-1 split here. This is a really good example of playing 2-1. The Untold Bangalore was playing close here. You need to swing further than this. Or, like, no. Like, you need to swing further than he does. You do that here. You do take a ton of damage because I think Untold should probably swung further first. But you still have to make sure you're doing it. You made a good call. Untold didn't swing as deep as he needed to. So you had to swing deeper, so you took a ton of damage. That's not your fault. You played it the way that was fine. Why are you... Okay, I high-key need you to lock the fuck in on your fucking positioning shit. I need you to lock in on getting the fences down before you perfectly reset and perfectly organize everything like you're playing chess. This is really bad. The opportunities where someone has the ability to get in your building and shit like that is really bad. It doesn't matter that you do or don't get punished for it. The problem is that you're going to get... This guy fucking sucks at Subway Surfers, dude. That you are going to get punished for it. And it's going to be your fault. Nice game. Okay. The two things I need to work on are your path, or I guess the three things are your pathing, your bad damage, and your action economy for when you're actually starting to fence and when you are actually, you know, like resetting, healing, all that stuff. Goodbye, Subway Surfers. You served me well. I've been playing Comp Apex for over 4 years, with well over 8k hours in the game. I feel stuck at a performance wall or a skill ceiling of sorts. Here's a complete VOD of my last CC4 where I played as an anchor. I have previous experience in all the roles, but before this CC I was IGLing a team. I'm unsure what role best suits my playstyle, and I actually feel sluggish mechanically compared to other players that playing as long as myself. My goal is to prove my overall as a player and strive to continue to strive in a role that fits my playstyle. Any feedback regarding even a slight bit would help immensely.
She just flash on me. Bang, flash. Bang one.
Okay. Two things. One, you don't have a very good idea of uptime. Because you're running Nemesis Havoc, which is, or was, and is still a good weapon loadout. It's just very demanding of ammo. And it kind of runs into the problem that some other guns outclass it in certain ranges, but because it's a Havoc, it's very good. When we talk about what weapon categories we use here, every weapon category has advantages and disadvantages to it. We either run specializations or general use. Now, it's important to recognize that specializations will always be general use. This is kind of like playing rock, paper, scissors, where if you're running a special thing, you need to play to your strengths rather than playing to your weaknesses. In a game like Apex, it's a lot harder to identify an opponent's weakness, but it is a lot easier to identify your own win condition. But you do need to generally always play in your win condition. If the win conditions line up between you and your opponent, it can be a lot harder. But let's talk about specifically how this works out with understanding weapons, right? Now, the thing about AAR specializes in specifically uptime. It specializes in the ability to consistently impact fights from like the most amount of time possible. You have a lot of uptime, you have really high and consistent DPS, but it comes at the downside that you lack specializations in close range. ARs are really good in part of the close, and it's really good in the medium to far. They struggle really bad here in a certain situation. That certain situation being that you're kind of in the middle point, because ARs, they do have good hipfire accuracy, but they struggle in a certain extent when somebody is both close enough that you need to hipfire, but also too far away that your hipfire is going to be inaccurate. Havoc Hemlock meta, though. I think you're misunderstanding the point of what I'm trying to say here. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that there's downsides to it. People are not really aware of why weapons are good they kind of just run the weapons that are good. You need to really understand how to make sure to ADS. You have to juggle both ADSing and hip firing. It's really important to understand when to ADS and when to hip fire, and to make sure that you have relatively a good understanding of the aim skill that's required of you to do this. Especially because when you ADS, you basically trade strafe speed for consistent DPS. The problem with hip fire is that it has very variable DPS. We leave it up to RNG to an extent. I'm sure most people know that if you fade in and out of hip fire and ADSing, that your spread becomes tighter, right? It's important to know the rate at which you do so. If we do it too much, the problem is that our strafe speed is reduced so much. And when we have a low speed, we have very little displacement. Displacement is a representation of how much we can potentially move in a certain range. It makes opponents way easier to be able to track us because it requires less aim skill on their behalf. A higher speed means we are harder to hit. Most players force raw aim skill when using speed. You'll see this a lot with movement players, where they will b-hop and then they will just kind of do this in place over and over and over again. And they rely on the fact that most players haven't trained their aim skill in a situation like this. But a player who has good aim skill and good strafe theory can beat a player that is just neo-strafing in place. I want you to specifically practice the art of juggling it here. When you get in a situation like this, it looks like you are uncomfortable with knowing exactly what to do here. You stay in ADS for way too long in this fight, and as a result, it's the reason why you not only miss your shots, but it's also the reason why you take so much damage here. My intuitive guess is that a lot of your mechanics are mostly learned, and you struggle with the actual higher level application of things.
Yeah, I'm going to. Play left, they're in smoke right here.
On the left side, on the left side.
Playing back towards Jen.
Yes. On me. For 80.
I'm healing.
Stay not. Killing fire. I destroyed the ult.
Healing.
He's pushing up.
This Phoenix kit for 25 HP is so troll. Holy.
He's pushing up.
This is kind of what I mean when I say the anchor is a really important role that focuses on uptime. You leave your team meant to die here, 100%. I don't even know what's happening this fight, really. I get to see the second-hand POV of this fight through the wall. I get to see that your teammate's right here, and I don't get to see anything else, right? It's important that when you're playing anchor, you have the ability to influence the fight as much as possible. It doesn't matter if you're 1 HP. If you have the ability to directly influence the fight as an anchor, you typically should. It comes at a very high risk reward of knowing when to actually do it versus when to not, but you're on your gen, right? You are currently resetting as you're doing something else. Watson's whole specialty is assisting in resets and making sure that you actually control space. You can reset and shoot your gun at the same time, because you're still healing here while you're doing this, right? If you're on a lifeline drone, you can still fight and still reset at the same time, right? If you're low HP, you shouldn't, if you're in the middle of a fight, you shouldn't be popping syringes on a lifeline drone. Just keep your gun out. In case someone's gonna swing you, you can do damage to them. You're not affected by this downtime, right? There's not really very clear comms about where people are or what the goal in this fight is, but it's like a brand new team, basically. When I'm looking to review this, I want you to make sure that you are focusing on not only getting as much information as possible, but also relaying that to your team if they need it. I mean, obviously, they don't need to be told that they're being swung here, right? But you need to know the information yourself so you're not caught off guard. I need you to focus specifically on shooting your gun more. After watching the 2 games I've played, especially if you're using double AR and double AR meta. I know the meta's changed, but it's still exactly the same. You said yourself, Dragon Ames was your mechanics coach for 5 months. You probably have really good mechanics, right? But you don't set yourself up in a situation to utilize and leverage those mechanics.
Side. They're swinging out. Bang, flesh. Dead. Another one on me. Burning. Two dead, Cheek. Flesh. I'm swinging. Dead.
Okay. Literally exactly what I said. Your mechanics are good. Your aim was good here. There's only one big criticism I have here. And that criticism here is right here. Right here from composite of this box. The problem comes with this grenade, right? I said it earlier in another VOD. You have to make sure, if you can do damage traditionally, you make sure you do damage traditionally. If you can't do damage traditionally, you have to make sure that you're doing damage non-traditionally. Non-traditionally just means grenades, abilities, stuff like that, right? If you can take damage traditionally, you have to make sure that you can deal the damage back traditionally. This is why it's really easy to get timinged by a lot of players, because they walk around with their abilities out, and they can't shoot their gun back at somebody that starts shooting them first. In a time to kill game, it's very important to understand that if you shoot first, you're a lot more guaranteed to win that game, or that fight. Because lethality scales off of how long you've been shooting for, right? In a game like Valorant, if you shoot first, you're not guaranteed to win that fight because you might have a worse gun. You might miss your shot, right? And so the person you shoot can just flick to you, hit a crazy flick, kill you, right? One tap you, or win because they have a better gun, right? In Apex, it's so much more tumultuous of when you actually start shooting somebody. And so if somebody starts shooting you first, you give them the tempo. You give them the lead to be able to control the fight and control how much damage you can influence in the fight here. If you need to slide forward here with your gun out. There's only a couple situations in where you don't want to do this, and because you are throwing this grenade at the same time this guy swings forward here, I mean, your teammate dies for this. We're talking like quarters of a second here, right? But your teammate straight up doesn't die right here. If you had your gun out and shot this guy, as soon as you saw him, you would have killed him here, and your teammate wouldn't have died. It might seem like a small criticism, but you're getting punished for this systematically. The way you approach that first fight in CC, the way we approached the last game where you pop in that Phoenix kit, the way you're approaching this fight right here, you're not setting yourself up to leverage your mechanics when shooting your opponents. You need to make sure that the way you're engaging with the game lets you do these things. You need to take control of these situations. You need to have your gun out. You need to shoot the opponents as they come to you, especially on Anchor. You're going to get punished for this a lot more on Anchor because that's what the role relies on. You don't have abilities to get away. You have to win these trades. If you take 50 damage as your entry character, you have to back up and reset. You can't continue to play aggressive. If you take 50 damage as an Anchor, you can't help your teammates that might have died or made a mistake here, right? You have to continue pushing forward even though you have 50 less HP or something like that, right? It's all how we're interacting with the game and how the enemy's interacting with the game. We focus so much on making sure that we can play the game that we aren't actually playing the game. Like when you have your gun out and you're playing the game, you do really well. You fried that guy on the back door. You fried that Bangalore once you actually had your gun out. You fried this guy. I mean, sure, they're all one and you're third partying them, but I mean, you're doing a good goddamn job as an Anchor. You're doing a good goddamn. You were an aggressive ass Watson here. It's very nice.